eliminating carb counting, that's a couple of years, not decades. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's sooner than I think many people had probably envisioned in the past, and so it's close. So you'll start hearing from us on that front soon, hopefully. And so between clinical trials starting and the work and publishing of that work, you'll start to see it.
Hello and welcome, it's Camille, no diabetic, your diabetes tech guy. Today's video is my first video interview of 2022 after a little bit of a break, and I am super excited to be sharing with you my conversation with the VP of Product Innovation at Medtronic Diabetes, Ali Dianaty. It's my first conversation with someone from Medtronic, so I hope you enjoy. We covered so many different topics, from smart pens to CGM, pumps, and everything in between. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to catch my future videos and conversations with interesting people. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so this is my first time speaking to someone from Medtronic, and it was actually very difficult for me to gather my thoughts because you guys are in so many spaces, from pumps, CGMs, pens now, which we'll get into in a second. So I thought I'd start with CGM. Because that's kind of something that's common across all of your kind of product portfolios, both for pen delivery and pump delivery. So Guardian 4 has been out here in the UK, in Europe for some time now, but it is still relatively new CGM. So if someone is watching this and they haven't heard of the Guardian 4, can you give us a quick overview of some of its key features?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one of the features is, of course, it doesn't require calibration. It lasts 7 days. It looks a lot like our previous generation sensor, where it has a transmitter and then that's charged and then used on a week-to-week basis. And then, of course, a disposable sensor. Its performance is good. It's about a 10% MAR, 10.6 to be exact. And it can be worn on the back of the arm or on the belly. And it does connect to everything in our product portfolio, which is as a standalone or integrated to a pen or integrated to our 780G, mini med 780G as well, if someone wants to run closed loop. So it does kind of the gamut as a result of that.
You know, so in the UK, it's been out for a while, and I know a couple of users who moved from 3 to 4 in a closed loop environment, and yeah, they really enjoying the no calibration aspect of it. I think that was a major kind of upgrade. Any updates in terms of availability of Guardian 4? Is this still kind of being rolled out across all your regions?
Yeah, so we started in October, and then it's been slowly ramping up. It's really more as a result of coverage in various countries that has not allowed it to be completely launched across Europe, but the coverage is now pretty good. And so I would imagine that it should be relatively available throughout Europe at this point.
For those listening from the UK, we had very exciting news about nice CGM coverage just a couple of days ago from recording this. So we are all very excited about that.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Sorry to go on.
No, I said that is absolutely fantastic news for the people in UK. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's like many of my viewers know the benefit of CGM. So like to people with diabetes, this has been a no-brainer for truly years. So I think it is so great to finally see payers, have a black and white evidence of things that we've been saying anecdotally for years. No, it is great.
Yeah.
Very, very excited about that. Cool. So, like you mentioned, the Guardian 4 is reasonably similar to Guardian 3 in terms of the actual look, and has the overlay tape, etc., etc. So, I wanted to look a little bit towards the future.
Sure.
The next, presumably Guardian 5, the What do you call the next generation? Is it Synergy?
Yeah, it's a good question. So internally, that was its internal name was Synergy. The next sensor will be a disposable one piece that's much thinner and smaller footprint, doesn't require over tape or charging or any of that. Internally, it's called Synergy, but when we launch it, it'll be called Simplera. And so that's going to be its name instead. And so we are going off of, we think Guardian has served us enough, and we're now coming into a new simple era, and that's where that name came from. So Simplera is after that CGM. Yep.
So it won't be Guardian Simplera, it will just be Medtronic Simplera.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. And where did do you know where the name Guardian came from in the first place?
Yeah, so it actually originally came from the notion of Smart Guard and then Guardian Sensor. So Smart Guard is our algorithm. And so it was supposed to be the Guardian sensor with Smart Guard. So that's where it had come from. And in addition to that, you being a previous 640G user, it was also to guard against hypoglycemia. And so that's where it had come from. So yeah, that was the whole premise of the Guardian name.
Assuming there will also be no calibrations in line with what we have currently with 4.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we did quite a bit of what I would call risk mitigation work with Guardian 4 to make Simplera better. And so we would expect that all the features that you do see in Guardian 4 would only get improved with Simplera, and that's the intent.
I don't know if you're allowed to share what the wear time would be of Simplera.
Yeah, it's going to start out as the same 7 days, and then we have plans to increase that to double that effectively. But those are all going to be subsequent deliveries, similar to how many of our competition have gone after it. And so it'll start out with 7 days, no calibrations, very simple to put onto the body, and try to make it as discreet as possible for people, so that it's not, it doesn't get stuck on clothes or doorways and those kinds of things. I wear CGM myself, even though I'm not a type 1, mainly so that I can get a sense for not only how we should be improving, but then seeing how everybody else does it as well. And, we try to do things a little differently here than I think some of our competition is. We spent a lot of time, as an example, on the tape, and made sure that that tape is very comfortable and not itchy when you get out of the shower, those kinds of things. And so try to think through it end to end to make it, quite frankly, invisible on the body. That's really what we're trying to do.
It's so funny you mentioned the tape, because it is one of those things that I hear about all the time. And I think it must be very difficult being in your position, because you're trying to make a product that will work for a million different skin types, and it must be very difficult. But it must be difficult, but I'm glad you're working on it, because it is something that we hear a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits, I have quite a few employees that are type 1s, and so we get their direct feedback a lot, aside from going out there and hearing from people as well. And now we do thousands of surveys, to figure out what matters and what doesn't. And then ironically, our head of sensors has very, very sensitive skin also. And so when she wears it, she complains about the tape a lot. The good news is that, we're not looking at just one component, of the CGM. Everything matters in the end. And, quite frankly, the wearability of a sensor has a lot to do with the tape. And that's why we've spent so much time thinking through it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that doesn't sound super sexy on paper, like 50% less volume and all of those things, just like tape, who cares? But actually, if you're wearing it, 365 days a year, and, it is genuinely on you all the time, you want to make sure it feels right?
That's exactly right. It's got to stretch, it's got to breathe, it can't be itchy. I mean, there's a lot to it. And so, like I said, we spent quite a bit of time to make sure that it was comfortable.
I don't know if you can publicly share. If you can't, I also understand. Any timelines on Simplera for anywhere in the world? No.
No, I can't share them, unfortunately. And most of that has to do with the fact that, I don't have control over the regulatory environment, and a lot of weird things can happen in those circumstances. The thing that I can say is that we're on the brink of submitting it globally, like within weeks. And so as a result, then we should start, you could assume what you would like to assume based on that, but we are planning on getting it in front of the regulatory agencies globally, very, very quickly.
Fantastic. Right. Moving on to a part of the your product ecosystem that connects to CGMs, the Inpen, the Smart Pen solution.
Yep.
First of all, we've always known Medtronic. I mean, it's been one of the longest standing diabetes tech companies that we have. I mean, the history of Minimed goes back truly decades. And there's always been a pump kind of driven organization. So first of all, can you share a little bit behind the scenes and like why you guys decided to venture into pens and kind of what the history is around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really simple thing, which is, we took a look at where we are, and we actually want to be wherever people with type 1 are. And that's not always with the pump, right? I mean, there's plenty of people that, prefer to be on multiple daily injections for a range of good reasons. And so when we looked at that and saw, what our capabilities are, it quite frankly is a good match. We know insulin dosing very well as a result of all the work that we have done on the closed loop front. And then more importantly, we have components to create what we're internally calling an open loop system, and helping people on multiple daily injections not only get better outcomes, but have better peace of mind about what they're doing and how they're going about it. I mean, stacking insulin is clearly a concern for a lot of people. No one wants to go hypo, and the Inpen can help with that. And then getting your boluses correct are clearly a big component of diabetes management, and that's another thing that it does and helps people with. And then the last but not least, for the clinicians, everyone that I talk to tells me that a logbook that someone puts down on the doses that they've taken are never accurate. And this automatically takes the work out of doing that too. So people can properly get titrated, do their carb ratios right, get their insulin sensitivities correct, so that they get the appropriate dosing that they deserve. And so it does a lot for being a simple device in that way. And it fits because, quite frankly, we want to just help people with their insulin dosing needs. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm completely guilty of the logbook thing. I think just unpacking all of that, just recording the actual doses, I think is huge for both people living with diabetes from a data analysis standpoint, if someone wants to track that, but also for healthcare professionals. Like in logbook days, which is like, 9 years ago for me, like, I would do the thing where, oh yeah, I usually inject around that each afternoon. I would just fill that in, right?
Yeah, and the things that we hear from people about it on it is just that, it's another very simple tool in their toolbox of things that's integrated with CGM that allows them, to manage things very simply. And so having all that information in one place, and then, to get an accurate measure of how much insulin they should take is just a lot less work and a lot less mental gymnastics, so to speak. And, that fits exactly with what we want to do.
Yeah, I think we've seen kind of taken a very high level approach, and this is not Medtronic, this is technology in general. Yep. We've seen kind of that algorithm, really smart things only being done to pumpers, and many of those technologies haven't really been delivered to multiple day injections users. So I think that's why things like bolus calculators and now smart pens is something that I've been following very closely, because I think it really has so much potential, especially, for many people with diabetes, pumps are just not accessible. So actually
That's right.
Smart Pen makes, you know, some of those technologies actually a lot more accessible, right? Reminders point that you raised, which I thought was interesting. My mind went to Klue, which I've been like a giant fan of. The idea, I always do this when I think of Klue, the idea of having my Apple Watch track that I'm eating something and then reminds me to bolus. It's like, once you say it and someone comes up with the idea, you go like, this is so obvious, yes. But it sounds great. So you guys teamed up with Klue, acquired Klue a while ago. Can you explain what Klue actually does and kind of how you hoping to integrate it and what you can say about it?
Yeah, happy to. So Klue is essentially an algorithm that sits on the Apple Watch and hopefully soon enough on all other wearables as well. We have it working on some of the Fitbits as an example, but the intent is to get what we call gesture recognition in place. And really what that is an algorithmic way of knowing when somebody is making the gesture of eating. And so it's as simple as, because the gyro and the accelerometers that are in the watch are able to actually tell when you're making this motion, and you know, that's a simplified representation of it. We can then assume that you're eating. And so depending upon how often you do that is also a good moniker, you know, for how big the meal was also. So we can get not only the fact, are you eating or not eating, as one component of it, but then potentially how much. And of course, the how much depends on the actual content of the food. But again, if there's more gestures, the likelihood of the meal being bigger is higher, right? And so we use that as an advantage as well. And so the way that it's going to work is, first and foremost, we want to put that into our pen and standalone CGM systems to start with, so that people do get bolus reminders. So in case they had not bolused ahead of a meal, it would remind them to do so that they don't have to you know, worry about it later and try to catch up, so to speak. So that'll be the starting point for it. And then eventually we'll have it integrated into closed loop systems as well, and use it as a meal announcement, and you know, quite frankly, avoid having people to carb count on an ongoing basis. And so it would use that information to decide whether or not a meal has been detected. And then if it has, we would use the other components within the system, be it the CGM and how much insulin's on board, to decide how to dose even further to keep people in range.
Yeah, as you were saying, the number of times you physically do. First of all, the whole technology reminds me of a new feature that Apple launched with hand detection, which I've had it on. It was really annoying initially, but now I really see the value of it. I've been using it for, well, probably over a year, where when you do that kind of motion, and I think the microphone can hear water dripping, it goes into the hand detection mode. So it just reminds me of that. The number of times you lift your spoon, that would work great for me. I don't think it would work for my mum, because she has a thing where she really likes to eat very small portions to spread her meal out, because you were saying.
Well, the good news is the algorithm is adaptive, and it's going to change with people. And so as it sees things, it's going to consistently learn also. And so that's the intent. And so you're right, it's not, well, we've even seen this in our studies as well. You know, everybody's habits are not the same. They rarely ever are. And so it is a learning system still, and it's going to adapt to those kinds of things also.
Cool. And you mentioned Fitbits as well, so it wouldn't just be multiple smartwatches, which would be very cool. No, I think it's one of those things that, like, also on your pipeline, that I just can't wait to actually see people use it, because I forget to bolus for meals. It happens to me. It happens to all of us, right? It's when you live in this condition 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. It does happen. It has happened, and it will happen, right? So it seems like one of those tools that will really hopefully reduce that no bolus.
Yeah, we're trying to do it in such a way where it's not a nuisance. So to your point of, you know, the hand washing side of things that you did experience with the Apple Watch. What we're trying to do is try to do that in the background. So if we notice, we'll go ahead and start dosing appropriately for it, not to the point where we're going to put anybody at risk, but try to stay ahead of it. And then similarly, again, same kind of thing on the pen side. If we saw that you bolused, we won't bother you. But if we see that you may have missed, then by all means, we'll let you know. And so trying to keep it simple that way too.
And that would be what you would call a software update, or would that be like an additional product that you sell on top of your portfolio?
It's going to be a software update, and we haven't decided how best to set it up, because it's likely that one of the options that we have is, if we decide to make it part of the system, then we would provide a wearable to go with it. May not be an Apple Watch, but we'll potentially provide the wearable to go with the system so that they can take advantage of that across the board. So you could use it on your watch, or we would provide a wearable for somebody if we thought that that was necessary.
Could you dig into that a little bit more? So
yeah, so not everybody's going to have an Apple Watch, right?
Yeah.
And so we're talking about potentially even making our own version of a band, if you would, that would do the same thing for everybody that doesn't have an Apple Watch.
Oh, I see. Okay. Makes sense. Cool. To close off the Inpen section, any updates and timelines for Inpen in Europe that you could share?
Yeah, so it's going to actually start rolling out very soon. We're just making sure that we have enough product available, because as you can imagine, the global supply chain is a little rough.
Right.
But we are intending to start launching it in countries, certain countries. I'm actually not clear on when it's going to be in the UK. I should know that, but I actually have forgotten when it's coming due. But Europe in general will start seeing it very shortly. So it should start rolling out any day now.
Great. Let's move to your pumps, which is also a lead-on from Klue, and you've already mentioned that for CGM. 780G has been out here for a while, longer than the Guardian 4 sensor.
Yep.
I think most people that I've spoken to are incredibly happy with 780G, with the much improved algorithm, lower target glucose, and just seems to take less time from, anecdotally, just one of those systems that just kind of stays in the background more, especially when you compare it to 670G. I'm curious what you have heard in terms of feedback from people on the field.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, 780G so far has been what we believe to be a fantastic product for people. To your point of the lower targets, plus the fact that most are in auto mode 93-95% of the time, a lot less alarms and alerts, and then with all of that, something that you had mentioned earlier to what we're talking about, it's forgiving. And what I mean by that is because it can do correction boluses. If people aren't perfect carb counters, it doesn't matter. It'll make up for that. If you occasionally miss a meal, it doesn't matter. It'll make up for that. And because of it, we're seeing a lot of great feedback that, it saved me. It did things that I totally forgot about, and it managed to keep me doing okay because it made up, for that. And so far, the feedback has been actually very, very, very good. And we're happy that, we made the improvements that we've made, because they're coming through in terms of, we're hearing them succinctly from people that they have been big advantages. So we're very happy with the performance of it to date. And then more recently now, getting rid of the finger sticks with Guardian 4 sensor clearly has made people even happier. And I think the notion of us constantly making improvements within the system is something that folks have up to this point been very happy with. So we launched the system 2 Octobers ago. The following October, we provided them with the no-cal system. And then our goal is to try to keep people on that kind of a cadence, that annually they get improvements. And then, the thing that I forgot to mention also is, we're the only pump system out there with a 7-day infusion set as well. And we're getting a ton of great feedback on that also, that it just, now I hear from people telling me that, every Saturday morning, I just change everything out and then I have to worry about it for the rest of the week. So sensors, set, everything gets changed out then, and I'm good to go for the whole week. So it's those kinds of things that we've been hearing quite a bit of.
On the infusion set, a couple of months ago, I've done a really detailed deep dive with your partners at Convatec about kind of how it works, and we talked about the Medtronic 7-day set, so I will link that. I think another one of those. I mean, we often say that actually infusion sets are the weakest parts of a pump.
Absolutely.
Because and another one of those things that just we had zero innovation in for truly decades. So yeah, the 7-day, and it's been out in a couple of places, and people seem to, I think, really enjoy the long wear. I'm the most excited about it from the environmental perspective. I think we as people living with diabetes, we make a lot of waste, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And then it's also a lack of insulin waste, also because there's a ton of insulin, that starts to add up if you're, making twice as many set changes in those tubes, and so it saves on insulin as well.
Something I wanted to ask you about. So 770G in the States and 780G here has the software updates, which we mentioned. Can you just talk a little bit about how they actually work? How can someone update their 780G pump?
Yeah, so when, at least in Europe right now, we don't have an active update available, but the way that it would work is that it's over the air. So you download an app that's specific to the update that you're making. That update would then load it into the pump, and then that loading of it into the pump still allows it to function. And so that component of it, because of the Bluetooth communication, it takes a few minutes. It actually takes 45 minutes to actually download a full set of code into the pump. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it becomes more like what you would do, when your iPhone is getting upgraded. It basically would then transfer that code into the pump, and then you would see a status bar, and that takes another 10 or 15 minutes. So it's about an hour to hour and a half long process because of that, and it depends on how good your Wi-Fi is and that kind of thing, and people will understand that when they see it. But basically, it's app driven, over the air, directly to the pump, and then the pump takes the information, converts it in, and then starts functioning thereafter as an update. So in the US, that's how we're intending to do it for all the 770G patients that we have promised them that upgrade, and the intent is for them to use the app to be able to do that.
And assuming the background delivery and the auto mode is still happening in the background when the update is happening.
That's right. So for that part where it's downloading, it's absolutely happening. The exception of that is when the pump itself is actually going through its process. So it's like a 10 to 15 minute window where no delivery is happening at that point in time. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. No, that sounds great. I think it's a better solution than having to plug your pump into a computer. It just seems a lot easier.
That was our intent. It takes a little longer to do that, just because a wired communication will be a lot faster. But we think that people will appreciate it more. And as time progresses, it'll get better and better and better. The first go at this, we were very careful and cautious because it's obviously a medical device, and we don't want anything to go wrong. So we do secondary and tertiary checks to make sure everything's okay. So that takes some time, and so as we gain more confidence, we'll make it even better.
Assuming if it's not the algorithm change, then update can just happen without a prescription update from an endocrinologist. But if it's like 770 to 780, then that software update would presumably require a prescription or something.
That's exactly right. And
Yep.
so things like to make the pump more capable of accepting, more functionality within the app, as an example,
Right.
that may not require a prescription. But to your point of changing the algorithm where there's training required and things are different in terms of what it does and its capability, then by then, yeah, we would need to get a prescription for that. That's true.
Cool. Okay, let's talk about this October's update. Phone control?
So we're probably not at that point in time. It's probably going to be the sensor we talked about more so than anything.
Okay.
So we're pushing along those lines. We have a couple of other things cooking to move forward. I know you had mentioned historically that our form factor is not that attractive, and so we've been working on that as well. So
Yes, I have. No, I think also the numbers for me, like the 600 to 700 pump series, like now we in high 700s. To me, the numbers are just getting way too high.
yeah.
So I'm kind of starting to lose track of, even though I'm an accountant, I should be good with numbers. And I know in my head, I know that 780G is more than 770, but it just, yeah. But yeah, I think the name and the actual pump design could do with a little bit of a refresh.
We agree. So we're working on both. How about that?
That's fantastic. No, that's super great here. We talked about insulin pumps in 780G, and I was wondering if you would be able to give us an update on your overall business in the US. So in December, you guys received a warning letter from the FDA. I don't know how much you can share, but any kind of updates on that and your processes updates would be great here.
Yeah, so we'd actually been working on the components of that since they came to see us in July. So they did an inspection and they basically gave us information of places to improve. And we've been working on that since then. And I think it goes without saying that the number one thing that we've been focusing on is to make sure that our products are of high quality and we're taking care of the people that have had the clear retainer ring, and making sure that we're swapping all those out and doing everything associated with it. So I mean, our goal first and foremost is to make sure that there's no concerns in the field with what's out there, and then making the necessary improvements to get past that. But then as it relates to the warning letter itself, there's been quite a bit of progress because we have been working on it for a few months ahead of getting the letter itself. And then come about March timeframe, we got feedback from the FDA that the plan that we had in place that they acknowledge as being adequate. So now we're in execution mode to finish everything that we need to finish. So that we can get this, hopefully behind us and cleared. So the next steps for us are essentially finishing the work, a reinspection, and hopefully clearance from there. So we're well on our way and have made quite a bit of progress on that front.
Cool. Right. To close off, final question. We've talked through so many different things, and from pumps, pens, CGMs, smaller updates, and with so many projects, this is just a question to you personally. If you had to select one thing, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, could be a small thing, what is the one project, one feature, one thing that gets you energized in the morning, that like when you walk into the office, you're like, I can't wait to get work on this, I can't wait to do that? What is like your highlight project thing that you get involved in that you can share?
I can share. That's tough. So I think
things that you can't share also do share.
Yeah, I think the simplest one, the thing that I know we can make a big impact with, is just eliminating the need to do anything with carb counting ever again. Right. And so to me, that has a lot of merit, not only for people with type 1, but trying to do it myself and seeing how bad I was at it. And I consider myself, able to learn these kinds of things, and it's just really really hard, especially if it's not a meal. I mean, go to a restaurant and try to think through that, and I can, the number of times I've looked at food and said, oh, I think this is 50 grams of carbs, and just been completely wrong. It's scary. It really is scary. And that's the thing that in the morning, I wake up and say, I know I could help that a lot. And that's exactly what we're working on. Is that the next big battleground we feel is to solve that problem for people with diabetes. And we know many things about it, and I expect that we're going to make huge impacts on that front, and I'm super excited for it. I think it's just going to make a world of difference.
Yeah, I think this is like carb counting. 100% agree. It's a minefield. It's one of those things that when algorithm-based therapy first came about, when I heard so many people saying, why would you trust an algorithm to, make all these decisions? And I'm like, you have no idea how many decisions I have to take every single day, right? And carb counting is one of those. And, you can get it horribly off, and it just happens. And actually, I know that technology can often it can pretty much every day do a much better job than what I can do. So
yeah, and ironically, that's what 780G has proven to us, is that we see quite a bit of data, as you can imagine, from our CareLink system. And when you look, you see how much it's helping people relative to what they inputted, and how it's making up that difference. I mean, on average, we're seeing 20 to 25% of the boluses that are getting to people are these corrections, these automatic corrections. That's a lot in the grand scheme of things. And so if we're helping them with this, technology that way, I can only imagine what we'll be able to do if we can make it that much better. And the data that I've seen is super promising, and I'm super excited as a result. So I really do think that that's the next big advent for us, and that's what we've been pushing.
Eliminating carb counting, that's a couple of years, not decades. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's sooner than I think many people had probably envisioned in the past, and so it's close. So you'll start hearing from us on that front soon, hopefully. And so between clinical trials starting and the work and publishing of that work, you'll start to see it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here.